Hey guys, it's Lorentz from iWood Cosplay, and today we're doing part 2 of ZACK Fair's shoulder pad. So the first thing you want to do after you finish your build is clean up the seam line. And to do that, you want to use some sanding paper. Here I'm using 150 grit, and we're just going to smooth out the two edges as best we can. So once you've done that, your seam edges should look something like this. So now we're going to use an even higher grit paper. Here I'm using 400, and we're going to smooth out that seam edge even further. Once you've done that, you should have something that looks like this. The 400 grit takes out that fuzz that the 150 grit made earlier, and if you want, you can take it one step further and even wet sand with 400 grit. So once you have the shoulder pad smooth out to your liking, we're gonna come back and make battle damage just using a wood burner, and feel free to use a photo reference for accuracy. The wood burner is great for adding deep scratches onto your foam. In my opinion, I think it went a little overboard. So if you were to do it, I would recommend going a couple of deep scratches and coming back with a utility knife for those lighter scratches. So another cool thing about wood burner is you can fabricate bullet wounds, and that's what this is. So this is the utility knife I was talking about earlier. So I'm just coming back and making those lighter scratches. And this makes it look more realistic because not all scratches are gonna have the same depth. So if you use this method, you're gonna have to come out with a heat gun, and that's gonna open up those scratches you made. Okay, so here comes the cool part. I'm using the product called Rapid Fill. I have a link in the description down below. We usually use this to fill up seam lines, but another way to use this is you can basically dab this product all over the shell to create textures. So here I'm using a blue sponge. You can use whatever you want to create that texture-like orange peel look that we see in the game. So once you do that, you should have something that looks like this. So once it's dry, we can go ahead and hit it with 2 coats of Plastidip. So once the Plastidip is dry, we're ready to come in and weather it. Here I'm just using Liquid Text acrylic, watering it down, and dabbing in the areas or the highlights that I think is necessary. Feel free to use any brush you want. Here I'm just applying some black and silver onto this mat, and then mixing the two with some water. There's no right or wrong way of doing this. Feel free to take artistic liberty. I'm just hitting the silver where I think the highlights are. In this case, it's the trim and maybe some areas around the battle damages. But like I said, there's no right or wrong way. So here it is with the highlights put in. It's very subtle, and I know the light in the video doesn't help it, but it should be very subtle, and we're gonna come back and try to dilute that as best we can. In the remake, I saw there's a little bit of rust on his shoulder pad, so I'm gonna come in with some brown. I think this is burnt umber. I could be wrong, but I'll double check and put the link in the description as well. But we're gonna use that, and we're gonna use some cheaper acrylic. I think it's called Folklore. I also have a link in the description for that as well. We're gonna mix the two and basically dab it onto the areas in which we think rust will hit. So once you applied the rust onto the shoulder pad and you're happy with that, we're gonna come back with some alcohol and wipe it down just so that it looks less apparent like it was brushed on. Okay, and you should have something that looks like this. And if you're happy with it, we're gonna take it outside and hit it with a coat of varnish to seal the acrylic. So here's the product with the varnish already dried. Once you're happy with that, we're ready to paint on the silver. That's the inner shell that we see in the remake. Okay, and there's nothing to it. We're basically painting the inner shell, and it's gonna be watered down acrylic, and we're gonna speed up the drying process with the blow dryer. So using the blow dryer is gonna allow the first layer of the acrylic to dry up so that we can apply a second coat of silver. And just like that, we're done with this build. This is ZACK's shoulder pad from the Final Fantasy VII Remake. If I was to do this again, I would probably add some black to wash down the silver just a little bit so that it's uniform. But if you're doing Cloud or any of the other soldiers, you can basically skip the battle damages and just stick to this method. And if you guys like this video, make sure you hit that like button. If you guys have any questions or comments, please leave them down below and I'll get to you guys as soon as possible. And with that being said, thank you so much. If you guys are new here, feel free to subscribe or check out my other videos. Until next time, see you guys.